On this video, I am going to be looking at the creation account, Genesis 1, 1 and following, beginning the very beginning of the Hebrew Scriptures. And I want to look at the 6 days of creation in chapter 1 and how it culminates eventually in 2, 1 to 4. But my goal is to work at grammar, and this will be followed then or throughout by a New Testament fulfillment application. And as I do it, we'll be looking at the Hebrew text, followed by vocabulary, and then phrase by phrase grammatical analysis, a translation, and then an application contextually, and then in New Testament application. So I want to begin with the law. Jesus, on the road to Emmaus, took the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim and found himself. He took the law, the prophets, and the writings and found himself. And so, as we begin this study, we're going to look at how we find the final application of this in John 1, 1 to 14, in the eternal second person of the Trinity, through whom all things were created, we're told in verse 3 of John 1. So we begin in Genesis 1, 1. Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha-aretz. As we look at that Hebrew, it would read, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Looking at vocabulary, we have be, which is a preposition in. Reshit is a noun that means beginning. So in the beginning. Bara is a verb that means to create. Elohim is a noun meaning God. 8 is the sign of the direct object. It's non-translated. Ha is the definite article the. Shamayim is a dual plural noun, heavens. Ve is the conjunction and eretz is a noun meaning earth. Looking at the grammar then, phrase by phrase, or word by word as we come to it, Bereshit means in the beginning or at the first. Be is a preposition with the shava and the noun reshit put together. Notice the be, we have a dot. This is called a dagesh lene. You find that dagesh lene is found in what is called the begot kafat letters in Hebrew. The beit, the gimel, the daled, the kaf, the fi, and the tav. When they begin a new syllable, and at the beginning of a word, the dot will appear, the dagesh lene, giving it a hard pronunciation. Notice also under Bereshit, and I'm hoping you might be following with a Hebrew Bible, or you can find it online, a Hebrew Bible reading, or with a Hebrew Bible. Notice there is a shava under the beit. And why is that? Because we are hurrying to get to the last syllable, the sheet. So Bereshit becomes Bereshit in the way that the consonants and the vowels have been put together, or the ways that we would read the vowels. Bara is a verb with a simple stem called a cow. Cow is simple stem. Sometimes it is called the G stem, the Grundstem, the ground stem by grammarians. But it is a simple stem, and we have what is called a cow perfect here, third masculine singular, from the root bara. Notice here we have a final aleph in the root. This is called a lamed aleph verb, meaning that the aleph is in the last position. In Hebrew, the verbal system is often described by following as a model the verb pa'al. Here we have a pei, an ayin, and a lamed. And pa'al means to do. So verbs that begin with the pei basically are called the pei type verbs, like a pei noon, with noon as the first consonant. Verbs that end with an aleph are called lamed aleph verbs because of the lamed position, or the final position. There is an aleph. Most verbs in the perfect have a kametz followed by a patha, and that's what we're seeing here in bara. However, here, that's what we're not seeing here. Here we have a kametz. The reason is that the aleph, being quiescent, prefers a full kametz, a long a vowel, instead of the shorter patha. Elohim. By the way, my pronunciation will be what I was trained in, more of a modern Hebrew. Some that teach beginning Greek follow a classical pronunciation. So I'll be following the more modern that I was trained in. So Elohim means God. Notice it is a noun. It is a plural masculine noun with the im ending. This is what we might call a plural of majesty, following the fullness of God, allowing, I believe, for the later revelation or the progressive revelation of the scriptures culminating in the New Testament, the Godhead. Three distinct persons making up the Godhead, and yet one God. And so the verb is in the singular rather than the plural. 8 is the sign of the direct object, followed then by the noun. It's a non-translatable word here, 8, or sign. Hashemayim, ha precedes the word, and it is the definite article. Notice it has a pathot followed by a doggish forte, the dot in the sheen. We saw a doggish lene in Beth Reshit. Here we have a doggish forte. Historically, to understand that, the article normally had a hey followed by a lamed, hal, historically. So it would have been hal shamayim becoming ha shamayim, where the lamed had assimilated or has assimilated into the sheen, causing a doubling, and hence the pathot, the short vowel in a closed syllable under the hey. Notice ha shamayim, and the lamed, as I said, by progressive assimilation, has gone into the sheen, and ayim is the dual ending, showing duality in Hebrew. Ve'et, ve is the conjunction, and 8 again is the sign of the direct object. Bereshit bara et 8 hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. So 8, as we said before, is the sign of the direct object. So we do not translate it. It just shows the direct object. Ha'aretz, the next word, notice ha is the definite article, and it has a long vowel, a comment. The reason for this is that the aleph cannot take a doggish forte like the sheen, and so in ha shamayim, the lamed of the hal historically dropped out, causing what grammarians call compensatory lengthening. So ha'aretz now has compensatory lengthening under the hay. So we move from a pathak to a comment, showing this idea of compensatory lengthening. Notice also in ha'aretz, in the final word, the accent that normally occurs at the end of a word goes to the next to the last syllable, ha'aretz, for emphasis, and hence the vowel is lengthened from a segol, ha'eretz, to aretz, because it is in pause in the next to the last position of the word here. So as we translate this, we render it, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then we have what I call an application or an interpretation. Historically, in the interpretation, there was no birthing of other gods. God is alone and simply creates the world. This, by the way, is in sharp contrast with the Babylonian account of creation in what is called Enuma Elish, where Apsu and Tiamat, male and female waters, mingle together to form a theogony of gods. That does not happen, and so in the Hebrew scriptures, so the point that's being made here is very different, and really I think is purposeful, showing the sharp contrast between the Babylonian account of creation in Enuma Elish and the biblical account here, showing one God. There is not a birthing of gods. In the beginning, created the heaven and the earth. And as I like to give New Testament application, since I'm a Christian minister, I think of John 1, that all things were made by him, speaking of the Logos or Christ in John 1. So this is a beginning. I'm going to stop here and try to sort of slowly do some of these great texts. Take what we might call an Emmaus walk, which Jesus is recorded as doing in Luke 24, an Emmaus walk through Hebrew grammar. And I just enjoy Hebrew grammar, and I also have a passion of sharing Jesus Christ as a Christian minister. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick it up in 1:2, Genesis 1:2, on the next video time.